Hi there, this is State Representative Strom Peterson from the 21st District, and today, maybe is no surprise, we're going to talk a little bit about housing. You know, a couple of years ago we had kind of what everybody called the year of housing, and we had some great successes, especially working on issues around the supply of housing, making sure that we're reducing regulatory burdens and some of the other things. But this year I want to make sure that we are supporting housing options for everybody in Washington State. And that especially means renters. We have well over 1 million renters here in Washington State, and we weren't quite able to help them in the first year of housing, so we're going to make sure that we do that this year. Number one priority coming out of the Housing Committee, as you know, I chair the Housing Committee, is rent stabilization. So Bill 1217, I think, is a critical piece to make sure that renters have some predictability, just like homeowners do. So we want to make sure that rent increases stay below 7% or at 7% a year, unless, of course, the tenant moves out, and then the landlord can reset the rents to whatever they want. This gives renters some predictability to make sure that they can budget for future rent increases and make sure that they're still able to, pay for groceries and do all the other things that they need to do. Yeah, of course, we've made some incredible investments over the last few years in the Housing Trust Fund, which really has robustly invested in housing across the state, especially housing for people in the community that are really hurting the most. But we also have some important legislation to make sure that cities and counties are willing to cite those housing projects, whether it's permanent supportive housing or emergency housing, make sure that we're citing those close to services and in all of the communities, so we're all sharing in our collective responsibility to help everybody in our communities. This is a very complicated issue, but we know that there are just too many people living on the streets. There are just too many people living outdoors, whether it's because they had overwhelming medical debts and so they've lost their home, or they've had a huge rent increase burden. So we have a great piece of legislation, House Bill 1380, that really is going to help cities avoid litigation while making sure that if they do have maybe a no camping ordinance, that they also take into account the opportunities to help those people. So whether that's making sure that we're citing the kind of housing, emergency housing that's needed, or the enforcement mechanisms that can, of course, be very expensive. Sending somebody to jail because they have to live on the street because there's no alternative is really expensive for local governments. So we're trying to come up with alternatives, trying to remain flexible so each community can make their own decisions, but put it in a broader framework where we know we're all really trying to help those people that are the least fortunate in our communities. I think success is going to be, I want to pass probably a dozen bills. And I think between the Housing Committee and the Local Government Committee, we have legislation in the Civil Rights and Judiciary Committee and other committees that are really going to help people navigate what's, the number one cost in any household is the cost of housing. So whether that's building more housing that's going to be affordable for young families to buy a home, or seniors to downsize, or families that are struggling to make sure that they can afford the rent. I think we have to make sure that we're looking at this holistically, and we're looking at every member of our community, and not just the builders or not just those that can afford to buy a home, but again, making sure that we look for everybody and find success. I think we can do that. I think all of these bills, work really well together. And if we look at it that way, I think we can get the work done and have a year of housing that will make the other year of housing pale in comparison.